Hey 1301 students, I hope that you are feeling good about your first essay that you turned in last night. I look forward to reading your essays on the writing process, but for now we're going to jump right into our next essay, and I want to, in this lecture, give you kind of the background information for how to write a cause and effect essay. Before I do that, I did want to mention that you also have read chapter 9, or will be reading chapter 9 of your book, that talks about the different forms of college writing. This is great background just to help you understand all of the different ways you'll use this class's writing in your college career. And so I encourage you to read over that. You'll be doing mind tap exercises over that. For now, just let me say that college writing, or colleges in general, are usually categorized into 3 different sections: humanities, social sciences, and natural and applied sciences. So read about those and let me know if you have any questions. But for now, we're going to move on to chapter 11. Many of you may be asking, why are we skipping chapter 10? I've decided that we're going to save chapter 10, which is a narrative essay, until the very end of class. This is a more informal kind of essay, and I really want our whole class to be focused on formal writing. And so I've saved that one for our final exam, which will be a written narrative essay. And I think that will just give you the freedom to kind of write informally there at the end of the class. So that's why we're skipping chapter 10, and we're going straight to chapter 11, which is a cause and effect essay. This outline goes a little bit off the book. It doesn't really, well, I should say it does not go with the book. I've been basically outlining the chapters for you in these notes, but today I wanted just to tell you a little bit more about cause and effect that I think your book doesn't elaborate on. So if that confuses you, just know I'm not really going by the book outline. I've kind of made my own this week. And so what I wanted to start with is, what is cause and effect? And cause and effect answers why something happens. So sometimes we write process essays that just tell us how a certain thing occurs, but cause and effect tells us why something is occurring. Causality involves more than just sequence. So cause and effect analysis explains why something happened or is happening and predicts what will probably happen. It doesn't just tell us the chain of events, it tells us the why behind that chain of events, and that's really important. There could be many causes, and then they could all have one effect. There could be many effects from one cause. You can pretty much do anything with a cause and effect essay, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as you go along in your own essay. So cause and effect, the big thing to remember is that it answers why something is happening. When you use cause and effect, you want to be sure that your analysis is balanced. However, in our prompt, which we'll get to here in a minute, you're actually going to focus on one. You're going to focus on causes, or you're going to focus on effects, but you'll need to be sure to mention the other one as well. There's a difference between main and contributory causes. A main cause would be the reason something has happened, and contributory causes would be things that helped make that happen. My example, in case you're wondering what this wintry house over here was for, my example of main versus contributory causes. Say we have a snowstorm, a huge snowstorm, and this beautiful house's roof caves in. a lot of us would assume that the main cause of that was that it snowed. However, if you see this, the main cause is not always the most obvious. So really the main cause of this roof collapse was probably poor engineering or perhaps damage to the roof. And so when we investigate further, we may find that the obvious cause, the snowstorm, wasn't actually the main cause of the roof collapse. I say this example because I think it's important that as you decide what you're going to write your cause and effect essay on, that you don't just assume that the main cause is the most obvious, that you really research and dig into it a little bit more. Causal chains are just the series of events that happen towards one particular effect. And we typically map those out at the bottom of your notes page on the second page. I gave you just an example of a causal chain, and this was from a business that's going through their business process, and they've got this causal chain of from learning and growth comes a business process, comes customer satisfaction, and then finally comes financial results. So this may be a good way for you to pre-write, is to kind of write out your causal chain and see where what causes are leading up to a certain effect. This could be just a good way to brainstorm. So causal chains are really helpful in cause and effect essays. Going back up to my outline, one thing that you want to be careful to do is avoid false cause fallacy. If you turn to page 303 in your book, that will explain. Basically, in cause and effect essays, we have a tendency to, again, kind of like the snowstorm example, assume that just because an event happened after another event, that first event was its cause. So we would assume that just because the roof collapsed after the snowstorm, that the snowstorm was the cause. That could be a false cause fallacy. And so you want to be sure that you can prove that your causal chain holds up and not just assume that it holds up because one event happened after another. Planning your essay is going to be, of course, a big part of this week. You've got your thesis and outline due this Wednesday at 11. So what I'd like you to do is go towards page 178 and 179. These pages kind of help you go through the writing process. Now you're going to select a topic from the prompt that I've given you, but you can take those writing guidelines on 178 and 179 and begin the writing process looking towards your thesis and your outline that are due on Wednesday. So if you look at this, your thesis needs to give us your emphasis. Whether or not your emphasis is on causes or effects. And I'm going to make you do just an emphasis on causes or effects. Your arrangement as far as outlining, here's some good ideas of how you might want to structure your essay. You could do it chronologically, you could do the main cause and then contributory causes, or the other way around. You could do negative to positive causes or effects, or the other way around. You could even dismiss an event that people think are a cause and then explain what the real causes are. The most obvious to the more subtle causes or effects. So there's a lot of different ways you could arrange this essay. So I'd really come back to this as you're planning your essay this week. Don't forget transitions will be important in this essay. be sure to be using transitions so that we know when you're switching from cause to effect, or when you're going from an old cause to a new one. And so transitions between your paragraphs and within your paragraphs will be really important. Okay, I feel like I've breezed through this. I think that between this outline and your text, you should be pretty prepared to start your cause and effect essay by thinking about these things as you go through. So real quick, let me go to your prompt and just give you some tips here. So this is your prompt for your cause and effect essay that is posted in your week 4. You've probably already seen it. So we have, our purpose is to analyze causes or effects of a certain cultural, social, or technological change. Remember I said or there. You're doing one or the other. So don't even your paper out. It should be focused on one or the other. This should be a formal, again, no first person, no personal pronouns, a very academic style. This one is due 2 weeks from this Sunday, so you've got 2 weeks to work on this. Here are your 2 prompts. Basically, one is you're identifying a shift in policies or practices in maybe our country, maybe our state, maybe our city, and then you're writing an essay in which you analyze the causes or effects. So both of these prompts kind of go back to readings in your text, and so hopefully after you've read those, you'll understand a little bit more. The second one is, instead of looking at these cultural changes, looking at technology. So identifying a social or technological change that has impacted your life, and then analyzing the causes or effects of that change. So you're going to follow one of these prompts. It should focus on either causes or effects, but not on both. This will go through what you should do. The essay should be 2 to 3 pages. This gives you just the simple essay requirements. And finally, before I go, I want to just tell you a little bit about what the next 2 weeks will look like. So you're turning in your outline and your thesis statement for this essay on Wednesday. You're also going through MindTap for chapters 9 and 11 this week. And then next week's going to look a little different. You're going to continue MindTap exercises on chapter 11. So you're going to do the reflection next week. But we're going to have a peer review. So next week's video, I'm going to show you how to do that peer review. Basically, you're going to be turning in your rough draft next Tuesday, and then next Tuesday evening, Wednesday, and Thursday, you're going to be responsible for getting on, and actually you'll get an anonymous paper and you're going to peer review it. So I'll have questions for you to analyze this person's paper. So that's what next week is going to look like. So again, I'll give you plenty of help and instruction for that, but I wanted you to just be looking ahead to that. So next week will really be dedicated to writing and revising this paper. So this week is dedicated to understanding cause and effect and planning your cause and effect essay. Let me know if you want to run any ideas by me. I will be looking at your thesis and outlines this week and giving you feedback. So good luck with this. I know this was kind of a short, quick lesson. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns, and I'll look forward to seeing your thesis and outline on Wednesday. Happy writing!